Colleagues and students, today our TDG project promoting mobile learning in the EDUHK project is organizing another seminar today offered by a very distinguished scholar, Professor Colpaert from Belgium. Professor Colpaert teaches instructional design, educational technology, and computer-assisted language learning at the University of Antwerp, Belgium. He is the editor of Computer-Assisted Language Learning, a very famous and top journal. Okay. And he organized the core research conference series. He is currently working on the empirical and theoretical validation of educational engineering, a novel instructional design model and research method. He has recently accepted the position of coordinator of the Center of Expertise for Higher Education at the University of Antwerp. So we are really excited to have Professor Colpaert here. Today he is going to talk about the place of mobile learning in a multimodal learning environment. Let's welcome Professor Colpaert.
Thank you for the invitation and the introduction. I'm very happy to be here again on this magnificent campus, and we hope to organize our research conference next year in August and to invite researchers and colleagues from all over the world to this magnificent campus. The title, I tried to say everything in the title of this presentation already. If we talk about mobile learning, I see mobile learning as one of elements, very useful elements within a multimodal learning environment. As I said yesterday, I hate the term blended learning, and I want to launch the more precise term multimodal learning environment. For those who speak French, I have added a very beautiful sentence from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, from Le Petit, no, not Le Petit Prince. Quand tu veux construire un bateau, tu ne commences pas par assembler du bois, couper des planches et distribuer du travail, mais réveille au sein des hommes le désir de la mer grande et large. But even if you don't understand the phrase, the sentence, it's so beautiful. The French is so beautiful. And it says something like, if you want to build a boat, then don't start with bringing together the materials you need, the wood and to make a work organization, but start with giving to the workers the desire of the wide ocean and for exploring the wide ocean. That will motivate them. And that's what's lacking a little bit in our education. We're talking about tools, about planning, organization, and we forget of giving to people the dream. Of giving, trying to give to people the dream and the passion of exploring wide and unknown territories. And this is the way I see the role of ICT in education. It's an ocean full of unexplored and uncharted territories. Perhaps I'm a little bit naive, but I have some experience in the field, so I will try to convince you of this point. So, very quickly, I've thrown away 60% of my slides. They made me throw away 60% of my slides. They actually wanted me to stop at 12:30. But my watch is broken, so you will have to make signs. I have 6 things to say, and on every of these 6 things, I could spend 1 week and longer just discussing it without reading anything. It's the things I teach. I've been teaching for my entire life. So, first I want to start with mobile assisted language learning. The word abbreviation is MAL. Beautiful. I've been in the mall yesterday. I will go to the mall tomorrow. They're beautiful, exciting malls here. But my first question would be, what does mobile learning exactly mean? We have some specialists in the room. But according to you, if we talk about, you expect me to say something about mobile learning, but what is mobile learning exactly? So many people are publishing about it, doing research. What is mobile learning in your view? I have time, I believe. here until Saturday. Mobile learning, easy question. Go ahead, don't be afraid. I won't shoot you. Might criticize you. No.
I would say learning anywhere and everywhere.
Yes. Okay, that's anytime, anywhere. So you add immediately the term mobile. Only indicates someone's geotemporal location, geographical location. And you add immediately the time dimension is the geotemporal location. One word, geotemporal location, anytime, anywhere. And how can we do that?
Multimedia.
By?
Multimedia.
Multimedia. Good.
Mobile devices.
I was afraid they were going to say only with smartphones, mobile devices. And this is the misunderstanding with many people, that mobile learning has to do with mobile devices. Mobile, you can learn, you can be mobile and learn anytime, anywhere by just going to a computer, a standalone, not standalone, this computer, I can connect to my workplace and I learn anytime, anywhere. I'm mobile. And this is what I wanted to say. There's a difference between mobile learning and a mobile device. If we agree on that, okay? It's not only learning with mobile devices, because that would be very poor, learning with only mobile devices. Well, nowadays the smartphones can do more, but in the beginning it was only phones with text messages. And then some people like Stockwell and other people already started working very quickly on that sort of mobile learning. Now, we could ask ourselves, I added this picture because it shows, it visualizes, for the people who specialize in visualization, it visualizes clearly what happens in the child's mind. I have two grandchildren already also watching on the tablet or the smartphone something, and I say what happens in their mind. You're just crazy about these things. You should limit absolutely the number of hours they're confronted because you don't know what happens in their mind. But if you have interesting applications, what happens in their mind when they're mobile learning? It's not traditional learning. It's what you say anytime, anywhere. Also indicates you are not following in a cohort with a group in a systematic way. It's more for flexible, self-organized, self-planned learning. So let's explore that a little bit deeper. You can't read this, and it's a little bit on purpose. If you want, no, it's simply saying this is what I found after 3 seconds on literature on mobile language learning. And it's simply from my journal. You will see computer-assisted language learning from which years? 2016, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17. So this is recent. Some names you might recognize, very famous in the world of computer-assisted language learning. And I added one from one other journal because he's very important. It's Jack Burston. Jack Burston is working in Cyprus and is the recognized specialist in one of them, next to our colleague. But Jack Burston has a lifetime of experience working with and knows the literature also very well and is the person to do that. That's why I wanted also his name. You will get this PowerPoint, so if you want, but it's just, you go to the journal Computer Assisted Language Learning, you type the keyword mobile, and you get all that. You go to Google Scholar, you get all these references. It's not my reference list, just to show it's a recent, current topic of high interest. If you see all these people, many people I know personally, Glenn Stockwell, here another big name, Rastan Shadiev, Riza Dagestani from Iran. Well, our journal is intercontinental. We have people from really all over the world. So, literature on MAL, you can spend many weeks on that, getting through that, and seeing what has been written. Now, coming back to these mobile devices, as I said, if we talk about mobile devices, then we see clearly an evolution. Simple, it's from my course in ICT and education. Where did we start? With standalone PCs. I started in '86, previous century. That's how old I am. I started after 6 years in secondary education as a teacher of French, for those who don't know yet. I started at university with standalone PCs after having worked in my master thesis with punch cards. You don't know what that is. You put the data on punch cards. We made holes in cards which indicated the zeros or the ones as the way to talk with computers. That's the way I made my master thesis in 1980. In 86 I started at the university because there was a professor who had a project with IBM and they could get the first PCs without a hard drive, only with these floppy disks of 256, whatever. Okay. And then we were very happy. One day we got our hard drive of 13 megabytes, etc., etc. Normally I spent 10 hours talking about that. But the first day that we got our cable to connect one computer to the other computer so that two computers could talk to each other was the most beautiful day of our life, even surpassed by our first connection to the internet. That was amazing. That we could, and we really thought that we were inside another computer instead of just connected to another computer. That was an amazing experience. Then the first text-based mobile phone and smartphone. Easy. Normally I can present many talk for hours about this, but this is not the interesting dimension. I did that previously in my courses, but I said this is not the real dimension. I will try to present you with 4 super interesting dimensions of mobile learning. Someone an idea of what I could be talking about? What are, if we talk about mobile learning, learning anytime, anywhere, on any device, not only on mobile devices, smartphone, tablet, computers like this one, what do we call about, what are the advantages of what we call mobile learning? What are the big dimensions? It's learning anytime, anywhere. Yes, that's an advantage for us.
Personalization.
But the first feature is personalization. Was that possible on a standalone computer? Yes, and we have been doing that. But the problem is, once you go to another computer, that computer does not know about you. So you can have the program adapt to your behavior after 15 seconds. The computer knows exactly what my level is. We have developed programs like that, verb conjugation programs, vocabulary programs, very simple. So after 10 questions, it adapts to your level and continues asking questions on exactly on your level. And when you stop, next time you resume, it knows who you are. It stored all the, was at that time called tracking and logging. That was the word in literature, tracking and logging. But nowadays we call that learning analytics. That's the fashionable word to say. Learning analytics is the computer who stores information and analyze information just to personalize, try to personalize the learning process better, based on learner characteristics. Okay. The second big dimension, in my view, for mobile learning is the socialization. That's, I hope it's the correct word, and you see it in the same way as I say. You can connect very easily with co-learners, but also with the teacher as a coach. That what we experiment, even if I'm here in Hong Kong, I receive emails from students saying, hey, I submitted my assignment, I haven't received any feedback from you yet. That's socialization. Puts a lot of stress on us. But it's easy, as I just explained this morning to a couple of students, and say, yes, but it's very important that you connect. You should connect, certainly as PhD students, connect to as many other PhD students as possible, but also experienced colleagues worldwide. And this is where these mobile devices allow you to be in contact every time, every day, with any question, but also go physically to conferences. That's also very important. Now, that is the second aspect of mobile devices, socialization. A third one is less known, because personalization is known, socialization has been written everywhere, it's not me who invented all that, but contextualization is an aspect that has not been analyzed or applied sufficiently in my view. Think about, well, let's say I learn Italian, which is not the case, I understand Italian, but anyway, imagine that I learn Italian, and I walk around in Antwerp, which is where they speak Flemish, and many other languages except Italian. But it's about noon, and imagine that my smartphone knows that I learn Italian. It knows everything. It suggests me where I should go and buy shoes and new watches here in this mall. When I got 50 messages saying, here you should eat this, here you should do that. The thing knows where I am. If I add personalization to that and say, hey, I'm interested in buying a watch because it's broken, I'm interested in buying silk costume because I should buy this in Hong Kong, it seems. I should buy here silk costumes. So the system should show me, in Antwerp, coming back to the example in Antwerp, if it knows I'm a level 2, a level course Italian, it's about noon, what should the system do? Technologically speaking, very simple, is send a message to me saying, hey, it's about noon, 150 meters away there's a good Italian restaurant, and on the menu today there's the following, all in Italian, and it explains the menu to me in Italian, and it translates it if it's too difficult. That's contextualization of the learning process. Adding the personal information to where you are, your geotemporal location, time, place. Analyze that. And now there's a very interesting phenomenon going on. My son, one of my sons made a PhD on that. It's a phenomenon of open data. That means that nowadays, and we're writing an article about open data in China, serious stuff. It's about the fact that in government, well, we pay taxes in Belgium, a lot of taxes, 50% of our salary goes to taxes. But they use that for some purpose, education and health and so on. But when some companies like a railway company or a ministry of whatever keeps the data for itself, then we say, hey, wait a minute, we paid for those data. That's our money, that's our data. So if I want to develop an application where I can see all these parents are waiting at the railway station for their children to arrive, and the train has 50 minutes delay, 20 minutes delay, why would an application be able to send me a message saying, hey, your daughter is arriving within 5 minutes, independent of any delay? That would be easy, but they don't have to wait. And this app exists, this is possible, if I have access to the database of the National Railway Company. And this phenomenon is called open data, the responsibility of Europe, countries, to open up public data so that you can develop intelligent or smart applications, meaning contextualized applications. If I'm in the neighborhood of a museum, and for instance, the system knows there's a Flemish painter in that museum, the system can say, hey, your favorite painter, there's one painting there in the basement of that museum, you can go there. Is that technologically speaking difficult? No, that's the easiest thing to do. Nowadays, the challenge is not into technology. No, it's into data. Knowledge is knowing what is where and how we can. The more the system is personalized, and the more it knows about the context you're in. If I say, give me here on TripAdvisor, what's the best restaurant here in the neighborhood? I know it in 3 seconds. Say, look. Give me the restaurant in this neighborhood, I rank them according to whatever ranking, and I know where I'm going to eat. So simple as that. So, if we add to that other technologies, and that's again, well, not that advanced, levels of augmented reality, ambient intelligence, and adaptive content, then we get very smart systems. Is that mobile learning? Yes. That is mobile learning, very strong mobile learning, meaning, what is augmented reality? Well, augmented reality is doing this, who is this? Oh, I recognize his face. Oh, this looks, okay, and now I know. The system recognizes and adds an information layer. I can go outside and say, oh, there's the bank is there. It recognizes. You go into a museum, oh, that's a painting by, it gives all the information on art education. Information, an extra, you know all that. Smartphone allows you, depending on information available locally, to add an extra information layer or interactive layers. You can see a human, and the app I can open up and see his heart and open his heart and do it. Adds whatever interactive layers. Very sophisticated programs allow us to do that. That's augmented reality, adding a layer to reality. The second type of intelligence is ambient intelligence. That's the other way. That's in an office like Bill Gates. In his office, if you come in, normally there are paintings on the wall, there are electronic screens, and those screens adapt themselves to the person who is in the room. If my favorite painter is Dali or Picasso, then I would automatically show my favorite paintings of Dali and Picasso. If I know at home, if I do that at home, I know I have a visitor who has preferences, I automatically adapt that. So that's the other way around. Instead of augmented reality, is the device itself that adapts to the presence of humans in the reality, and that is ambient intelligence. So two very important phenomena. That gives adaptive content. Means the combination of personalization and contextualization gives adaptive content. Only the things you need. So the question will be, from mobile learning, should we be talking about perhaps something else? You're certainly not talking anymore about mobile devices only, even if a lot of interesting things can happen there. And the last dimension, the fourth dimension, is the virtualization. The virtualization is another way of being mobile. Being mobile outside of reality is being so mobile that you go in a virtual world. If you go into second world, in second life, I'm very mobile in second life. Anything can happen. I built my own school, I start my own business in second life. That's another dimension, the fourth dimension of being mobile in virtual worlds, or virtual world on a computer, or with wearing VR wear, as you say, glasses, Google glasses, whatever, Google glasses more augmented reality, while this gear is really trying to give you the impression of being in a virtual world. That's even giving you a sensation with a normal computer. I can go in a virtual world, but I do not feel as I'm inside. With that, where you move around and you have the impression of doing very dangerous stuff. Now, do you see, instead of talking about mobile devices, mobile learning, it becomes learning anytime, anywhere, very interesting. But not only that, because that's only an advantage. Oh, always the same example. I'm on the bus, I wait for a taxi. Oh, I can use these 3 minutes for learning. Do we do that? No, we don't. We don't do that. Although here in Hong Kong, if I watch people in the metro, they're all like this. And then my wife said, are these people are mobile? These people seem to be mobile, but are they learning at this stage? And I thought, I have no idea, because I can't read what they write. I can't read it, so I do not know. I would like to ask them, I'll do a survey, what are you doing exactly at this stage while waiting for a taxi? Or are they learning? I have no idea. So this idea of anytime, anywhere, yes, sure, I want to learn when I want, but I want, especially technology, to give me adapted content. Really the things I need, the things I want, the things that are relevant for me. And this is a really smart intelligence. Now, one of my theories is that no technology has an effect on learning. Normally that's my first sentence of the course, ICT and Education, very famous sentence. No technology has an effect on learning. Then why are we following this course on ICT and Education if technology does not have an effect on learning? No. No one has ever proven that there is a measurable, generalizable effect on learning. No. That's my point. I believe in it. But am I against technology? See, I'm not against technology. It's like, can cement make you happy? What is the effect of cement on your happiness? I think none. No. My metaphor is, you need cement to build a house where you can become happy. And this is the way I look at technology. No, it's not because you use smart devices, ambient intelligence, all these beautiful things, that automatically there will be a learning effect. That's naive thinking. What we need to do, it's not technology that generates a learning effect. It's the entire learning environment. And it's the extent to which this environment has been designed in a methodological way that the learning effect will increase. It's the totality. It's this holistic approach. It's the soundness of also the perception of the students in how they see it as a metaphor, as a beautiful learning and coherent learning environment. That is exactly what has effect. And the question is, as my title indicated, what is the place of mobile devices in such a beautiful environment? You need to first design your environment in order to know, do you need mobile devices? Do you need forms of mobile learning? Do you need this virtual, smart, contextualized form of learning or not? It's not on itself. You can't say this is useful technology. No, it depends on your learning environment. In some learning environments, you will need technology. In another, for your case, for your personality as a teacher, for your learning objectives, you will say, this is the learning environment I want to create. And the reason I have not slept last night is I had a huge discussion with the vice rector about the way I want to design my courses. And I say, this is the way I want to design it, and I know what I'm talking about, and he wants me to do it in a standard way, flat way, so that students are happy. I don't want to make my students happy. I want them to learn, and that's a conflict in itself. I mean, that's our main paradigm or dilemma we have to deal with. Of course, they should be happy. But using Kirkpatrick's model of evaluation, we can measure satisfaction on various levels, not only on knowledge. Okay, what's my problem? In this course, I have 100 students. It's a course in instructional design, whatever, it can be any course. And I tried to experiment. What I did, well, was one first problem I had. It was the first time my daughter was in the group of students. I have 5 children. It was the first time I had to teach before one of my children. In her last year, there's a second master she already had. She doesn't stop. Happens with, okay. But you see their faces. My students are happy. But I want to make them, no, it's not true. What is the problem? These students work full-time. And they come follow my courses in the evening. So I have to teach between 8 and 11 in the evening. Then I have to drive home, 1 hour, very dangerous. But they are tired, I'm tired. Sometimes they can't follow the face-to-face session. So their question so often is, can't you record? And so I have my session recorded, but I am not happy with that. Why? Because what I'm saying now here before you, I'm talking to you, and not, if this is recorded, not talking to the other person, because we are discussing, and once you look at it afterwards, it doesn't mean, certainly I don't want to see myself. I never watch myself afterwards to see this or that. No, I'm just in the moment. But is that a solution for my students to record face-to-face sessions and to then design separate paths? Well, and this is a decision I want to make for next year. This year what I did was an experiment in design, being with group work. I gave them every week a small task with every time different groups. And I gave every group grade. And so by changing groups, I got individualized scores. And I want to see to what extent that corresponded, that correlated with peer evaluation. Well, I want to make it out a competition. They were not that satisfied with the result, me neither. So for next year, I really want to make a separate path. And I want to see how that works out. It's not because I can't do that. I absolutely need to evaluate all my students the same way. So how can I do that if there is a path, a remote path, and a face-to-face path? Come back to that. How do we do that? Well, that is, as I said, in a methodological approach using instructional design methodology. And there are several models I teach, but I also have my own model. And I throw that out, so I won't bore you with 45 slides I have about educational engineering. But let's just say that when I ask people, that's my method for designing courses, educational engineering. When I ask people what is engineering in your view, they start talking about buildings, about aircraft, about technology, etc. And that's correct. There's medical engineering, there's musical engineering. But if I ask really what is engineering exactly, when I was looking for a name for my method, for my approach, I stumbled upon this definition by Billy von Quinn, who said engineering is the best possible strategy. The strategy for causing the best change in a poorly understood or uncertain situation within the available resources. Then I thought, because Quinn was writing in '85 and recently in a more recent book about education, he was at that time not writing about education. He was really writing about the thinking methods of engineers. How do engineers solve problems and make the world better? And then he gave his definition: the strategy for causing the best change in a poorly understood or uncertain situation within the available resource. And then I thought, this is the best definition of education I've ever seen. This is the best definition of education, don't you agree? As a teacher, we need a strategy for causing the best possible change in a poorly understood or uncertain situation within the available resources. At least I feel more comfortable as a teacher when I consider myself in that situation. What students get also in our degree in Master in Education, they think, oh, these theoretical models will help me find solutions. And then I tell them, no, there is not enough knowledge available to prepare you for all possible situations in education. No. You see, some models do not think that's enough. They just can help you up to a certain level, but the reality is there. So in order to make that jump from what you know to solving daily problems is a huge jump. So we better learn to take that jump. So my definition of educational engineering is strategy to apply when not enough knowledge is available. And there is not enough knowledge available. Tell me one thing that has been proven in education. No one has ever answered that question. No one. Tell me one thing that is absolutely proven in education. We have strong education, we have good practices, we have experience, we have good feeling, etc. So normally I would say educational engineering is about building hypotheses because we are not sure. So we build a hypothesis, we do it in a methodological way, systematic stage, through analysis, design, development, implementation, evaluation. We do it in a cyclic and iterative way. That means I cannot design my course in one go, in one operation, and immediately make it perfect. Aircraft, cars have not been built that way. We started with very stupid things, and we just made them better after using them. Well, this is the same way in education. You start with a stupid, simple course on something. You just start with the most traditional stupid things and just try to make it better year by year on the basis of the feedback of your students and your own feeling. This is why I see education as cyclic and iterative and progressive. Even as I said, the course I'm discussing is the 15th time I teach it and I still don't know how to teach it. I ask your advice. So it is all a question about cycles, about life cycles, about loops. But in educational engineering, it's not about the product. It's not about this is a good way to teach. The process, the focus is on the process itself. Now, the ADDIE stages, meaning engineering is about ADDIE stages, very quickly, in order to come to very quickly an overview of these stages. In an engineering process, we define these stages and say exactly to people when we design courses what they should do in the analysis stage, for instance. And this is an example of what we do. We try to identify aspects for learner, teacher, etc. that can change, that cannot change, and that should change. And these are the first thing you chart of. As a designer, you should know the things that you should change, you should improve, that you can improve, and that you cannot improve. If I want to make this room better, I can change some things. But there are some things like this pillar, I suppose I can't remove it. This wall, could be possible that I can make a better room. I can change the lighting. The air conditioning, I don't know. As a designer of this room, there are things I can play with, and other things I can't play with. So I should have a precise idea about my degrees of freedom. Second stage, well, we have this specification after the conceptualization. So we teach people how to make a pedagogical specification, content relation, architecture and technology. But one of the most interesting aspects is that we do that with a focus group technique. I will give you the reference in a moment. When we discuss with students about their negative feelings, while they are, my first question is, complete the following sentence. When I think about this course, I think about the following, type of the following problems. And they start, yes, I need to find a babysitting, I need to find a parking spot, there was no bus, the bus was late, but the course is boring, and I did not identify myself with the goals of the course, and I did not have no clue how I had to blah, 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 blah. Okay, and we write that on the blackboard. That's a focus group of 10 students. My second question is, and that takes 15 minutes before they come up with the first word, then I say, okay, I'm ready to write on the blackboard or whiteboard. When I think about these problems, I feel, and mostly they start talking about the problems again. When I think about these problems, I feel that the bus was late. I feel that I have problems with babysitter. I did not find the bike. They say, yes, but how do you feel? Such a difficult question for people, certainly in Japan, because apparently they do not seem to know that they have feelings. And certainly not when the teacher is present, just joking. But sometimes for many people, even for adults, it's very difficult to ask what I'm feeling. No, sometimes as a joke, I ask when I start a presentation, I ask people in the first slide without saying anything about myself, or what the purpose of my talk is. I say, people, can I ask you something? Can you ask you to close your eyes and hold your neighbor's hand? And I do this, and mostly a lot of people try to do it and start laughing. Other people simply can't do this, or think I won't do that. And then I say, after 10 seconds when they are laughing and saying, this is stupid, another crazy speaker who thinks he's interesting, and I say, what was going through your mind? Why are you doing this? This is stupid. But remember, this is what happens in your student's head when you come up with a new task, with a new activity, with your course. This is exactly what happens. Oh no, that again. No, so how can we work on mental acceptability of what we suggest? And that's not perfect. I try to experiment, I fail, I have success. It's a continuous, this night I have not been sleeping, it was a failure, and I don't know why I'm so angry with myself. But the student should have known that I was experimenting with the design last year. Come back to that later. So, but this is interesting. The list, you can find on the internet the list of negative feelings. There are, in every language, something like 40, 50 frequent words, very interesting as a vocabulary exercise. Simply do that as an exercise. But I feel, try to apply that in your work. How do you feel here this morning? I feel, in one word, how would you say that? I feel difficult. Useful. I feel challenged. I hope. Funny. But the most important question is, I feel, and we have this list of feelings after a long time of silence. But the most frequent are, I feel frustrated, I feel alone, not supported, not respected, I feel blah, 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 interesting. But then I show them that every negative adjective, every negative feeling, behind every negative feeling, there is a positive will, positive volition. Meaning even with frustration is a very beautiful word. Frustration is, I am in a bad mood. I'm angry because I did not succeed in my plan. You can put a focus on the failure, but you can also put a focus on that you absolutely wanted to create something very positive. There was the will. So if you think, this is why I teach the students, if you wake up in the morning and you think, oh, I feel a little bit, after every negative feeling is a positive will. Look for the positive will and you will feel a lot better. No, as a designer, what I try to do, the students want to feel competent, they want to be evaluated fairly, they want to, it's not about be happy, be rich, no. Personal goals, as I call them, and like I described them in my article, it's my design foundations. If I want to design a powerful learning environment, a multimodal learning environment, and the first thing I want to realize is not the pedagogical goals, but is trying to take into account, do they want a lot of support? Do they want to feel related or not? Meaning, do they want to collaborate or not? All students are different. It's no such thing as they should absolutely learn to collaborate. Sometimes they absolutely do not want to collaborate. So this contradiction between what they should learn and what they want to learn. And so my final conclusion is, okay, my course should absolutely focus on competence, relatedness, autonomy, all these things that you know from self-determination theory. It's written, I will give you the PowerPoint so you don't have to write anything, but it's not a theoretical article. I hope it's a fun article to read with many anecdotes and advice how you can apply for yourself this technique of focus group so that you know exactly what's important for your students. That's fun. Try it out and give me feedback on the method. It's a simple technique. It takes 1 hour, and you know what your students want. Well, this is an example of such a list that you can find on the internet of negative feelings. It's an extensive one. Normally the list of used words is something like 40, 50 here. Okay. So more concrete examples of volitions is that I say my students want support, direction, situation, reward on effort, respect, feel competent, feel related, feel autonomous, fairness, clarity, usefulness, enjoyment, results, self-realization, feel confident, feel calm, or not. So I have to, it's a question of, based on my analysis of negative feelings, to make a choice. And to say, in my design, they need to feel in a group, or not. They need to feel my constant support on Sunday evening. They send me their task on Saturday morning, and on Sunday evening ask, where is my feedback? You haven't sent me the feedback on my task yet. It's like that. Sounds familiar? Okay. That's the... Okay. Then design starts with, that's my job, how to design. It's mostly about reconciling conflicting goals, pedagogical goals, personal goals, as I said, and it's about formulating hypothetical constructs. So that's, sorry for going quickly about these at these stages. That's quickly, that's my course in design. I'm not going to explain that now for you. Just looking at the clock. Okay. My personal, I say you can all become engineers, because engineering is about formulating hypotheses. I have formulated my own hypotheses, and I have named them, my personal method is distributed design. You have to give it a name. I gave it a name, distributed design. I have an explanation for that. But very quickly, it's simply about 4 paradigm shifts: ecological, process-oriented, pull paradigm, psychological. The psychological one I already explained. The paradigm shift is what we do when we prepare our course designs is focus on the pedagogical goals. That's what they taught us. And in my approach, I say, no, we do it vice versa. Start with the personal goals. Try to realize these personal goals first. Make them feel competent. Make them feel autonomous. Make them feel supported. All those things, make a choice and start there. And only afterwards add your pedagogical goals. It will be a better way to make your pedagogical goals far more acceptable. The first, the ecological paradigm shift, is all what I already told you. Technology does not have an effect on learning. Where does the effect come from? The entire learning environment, hence the word ecology. Learning ecology is your context. And the learning effect can only come from a well-designed ecology, hence ecological paradigm shift. It's not a product in itself. It's not my perfectly designed design that I can say as good practice, you will use that, or you can imitate or apply that in your situation. No, because it will, by definition, be different. You should apply the same methodology, and because your context is different, your students are different, your personality is different, your learning objective is different, your learning environment will be different. And that's a beautiful thing. Everywhere where I come in the world and people ask me to evaluate and design the learning environment, I do not know in advance what a perfect environment or what a well-designed environment is. I have to go through the reasoning with them. And sometimes something very beautiful exists, or they create it themselves. And that's the beautiful part of my job. So I have defined several paradigm shifts to tell people, well, that's my method to do it. Wherever I go, I apply these paradigm shifts. And the last one is the task design process, meaning that's a different kind. Certainly for language learning, we all know about task-based language teaching. Okay? Task-based language teaching says there are 4 criteria defined by Ellis. It's about non-linguistic task, a non-linguistic outcome, about presenting the learner with the gap. You know all those criteria. But in task design, I talked to you about the importance of designing the entire learning environment in a methodological way. Well, the task, in our time when I was teacher of French, the only task that we had was exercises on verb conjugation and something like that, translation exercises, fill-in exercises. And task-based learning said, no, you should go out and do tasks in the real world and learn from there. Okay, but then we added an aspect and said, yes, but if we combine both, and say, how can you then integrate good tasks in a well-designed learning environment, then we said we need something else. And this is my task design conceptualization model I'm currently trying to write. I will provide you with a thing, but this is under development. This is meaning, how can you design a task? And then I come back to the mobile aspect. It's very important because these mobile learning activities are mostly tasks. The teaching disappears or becomes less. The independent learning has appeared to be not always the best solution. No, we are not, I want to learn on my own. If I want to learn a new programming language, I just go and follow a STEAM course and then continue on my own. There's a kind of mixture between teaching, learning, and what's in between. The connecting point between learning and teaching is the task, the assignment. Is saying you're going to do this or that, individual or group. And then how do we conceptualize the task? Well, we say there's a pedagogical layer. This is made for a European project on telecollaboration, meaning the examples that I read in literature and saw in projects of when they bring two classrooms and classes of students together from France, Italy, England, and so on, and they need to talk with each other in lingua franca or in each other's language, whatever tandem learning. The examples I saw was so terrible. So present yourself to each other. Talk about your cliché about the other culture. Do you like to drink beer or do you prefer wine? I call these discussions for or against cancer, something like that, completely useless. So I wanted to develop a model with which teachers could come up with more mentally acceptable tasks so that students would react and say, instead of, remember my sentence, close your eyes and take your neighbor's hand, that the initial, instinctive, intuitive reaction of students would be, oh, something new, seems interesting, let's try that. Instead of, oh no, again, oh no, verb conjugation again. But the examples I've seen are of that type. I say, oh no, am I glad that I'm not a student in that case? So this is our effort to say, yes, you start with the pedagogical layer, try to identify what is your pedagogical goal of this task. But what we're going to add is the psychological layer, is the analysis of what they want. And another layer is to choose the activity layer. Mostly it's about talking. And we are testing now and researching, let them make something together. Even in telecollaboration, make something together. Stage a musical, make a broadcast, make a text, make a drawing, make whatever, a trip, prepare, even you can draw a house and make it. And they say, yes, but if they make it, the product is important. Yes, put the focus on the product so they forget it's about learning French. I did that in my time. I gave them tasks. We went to climb mountains. I went to France with classes, and they completely forgot that they were learning French because the focus was put on the task and on the product. Now you can say, how can classes in telecollaboration make a product? Hello, there are something like 3D printers nowadays. Duh, they can build engines together, cars, trains, houses, something very creative, the most beautiful things. And suddenly what you see with this model is not, you should do this way, but you see suddenly a wide array of beautiful creative solutions that you can offer to the students, that they immediately see, wow, yes, let's be, why not artistic? Why, no, let's put the focus on, make a painting in the style of Dali or Picasso, and paint your own house or in the style of, and you combine and you hide your real learning objective. Then the autonomy layer is also saying, that's the last layer, is saying, I can give a task like that to my students, say, you are going to do this. Or I can say to my students, well, I had a task in mind and you have the choice between A, B, and C. Or I can say, listen, the task I had in mind is the following. Now take an hour, discuss it with each other, and come up with a counter proposal, with a redesigned task, where you would feel better, you make it better. Then what we see, what is interesting to me, is the discussion while you're discussing the task, and then if the task is discuss pro and cons of this or that, if we compare that, where do you think that the linguistically most interesting production would be? What do you think? When they are preparing the task, because then they think, we are not working on the task already, we are not observed, we are just talking. And as soon as it's about doing the task, as Krashen would say, this tube, the input-output is blocked, because you're observed, it's the task, you're being evaluated. So the trick is to put the attention and the focus to other things. I say, look at the bird, like for children, little children, look at the bird, oh, little bird. So their attention is, oh, beautiful product. And they forget. In my class, when I said, oh, we have a problem, we were, of course, very beautiful when you teach French that you can prepare your actual trip to France. But what I did was, I showed the map of Paris and say, yes, but I have a problem. How are we going now from point A to point B? And even in students that were not very strong in French, they started a discussion, yes, but well, if we have to walk 5 kilometers a day, we will be very tired. No, you should be an athlete, and we, etc. And the other one said, yes, but in terms of price, we have to watch our money. And they were discussing and arguing very heavily about the boat, the bus, the metro, or walking or biking, and all the vocabulary they needed. They came across all the language functions they needed, this discussion, point taking, about having a voice, they have to defend their point, and most importantly, they forgot they were speaking French. Not excellent French, but they forgot. And this is what I wanted in the learning environment, to create in the learning environment, is to make them forget the focus on the learning process, make that a little bit invisible, make the activity very useful by trying to know what they really want in their subconsciousness. Not easy. It's a difficult task, but a very rewarding one, to be fascinating. Teaching becomes for me not sometimes, oh, I need to teach another 3 hours this evening. It should be something like, whoa, I look forward to seeing what they have prepared for me. And is that my... you can turn teaching, simple teaching, into a beautiful research activity. Research for yourself, trying to improve your course year after year by trying out, experimenting. And this model is very beautiful. It should be very practical. I'm currently working on that. It seems very complex, but I try to simplify it. Just to say, people, open up all the possibilities. Open up the possibilities. There are so many interesting things to do in your language courses. And this is which might revolutionize language teaching in the long run. Let's come back to my initial point, to how can we now combine mobile language learning and educational engineering. Well, I come back to my problem. You can help me. What I did this year was, so I had 7 short group assignments, I gave intermediate feedback and final evaluation, was changing group composition, and the students were, well, not really enthusiastic about what I wanted to analyze was the correlation between the final score and the re-evaluation. That was not really a success, but just show that I experimented with something, and I'm really, for myself, a little bit disappointed with this stupid thing. Now for next year, what I'm going to try. My next year, my experiment would be, okay, the students, I asked my students this year who would prefer to do it in self-study, stay home, do it on distance, remote. And they said 50%. So I'm now considering working very hard on, and you can help me with that, in designing my course for next year, which would be half of the students stay home, half of the students are with me face to face. And I consider myself as a chef, master chef kitchen. So we design together. I'm not teaching any theories, that's their group where they see all the ID models and they present that to each other. But when I come in, I have a case, and we are here together, chefs in my kitchen. They present the case, and I show you how to make your sauce béarnaise, which sometimes fails, sometimes works out, even in my case. But it's like we work together. Now, I was already thinking, I have to do something, in any case, I have to evaluate them together, or I have to create separate courses. But this is my simple scheme I have in saying, this is my design for the moment. I would start with plenary formal lecture. You have to start with something, introduction to the course, explaining how we are going to do things, blah, 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 1 or 2 lectures. But then, I would put some of the content of the course into self-study material. On the wiki, they have been doing that for 15 years. I never written my course myself. I always ask the students to write my course. It's on the wiki, universally accessible. Anyone can look at the material of my students, public wiki. So you can see year by year how they use the work of the students of the last year to make their own new presentation of models. But that's for self-study, so they can read that on their own, they can use that on their own, they can make exercises on their own in a MOOC, like self-study, we will see that. But then, where the remote path and the face-to-face path can use the self-study material when they want, anytime, anywhere, then I would have, where does it separate? Well, I would provide individual assignments for the remote group, and, as I said, the practical seminar for my master chef kitchen challenge, quick fire, whatever. Australia, I like Australian master chef. Is there a Hong Kong master chef? Australian master chef is like that. And I got the idea there. I'm not teaching for masters in instructional design. I should not be the teacher. And they have problems with it. They expect me to be the perfect teacher, and I don't want it. I'm the chef, and they should have a common exam. Now, how do I make these groups work together? There's something like group work. Well, the idea where I made mixed groups, changing groups last year, now I would like to make more stable groups. They like that. But group composition, I give group work, I say half of the group belongs to the face-to-face path, and half of the group to the remote path. How do they communicate? On devices. Okay? And it makes sense. Last year I needed to say, well, go and make after an hour, go and find your team members. That was sometimes very difficult because every week was new group composition. It was very interesting to try out. Now I would say, okay, you know your group, I will give you an assignment from time to time, and you can't do that during the lesson, or you can, but you can collaborate synchronously or asynchronously. What we see is that their agenda is so full that more and more that glides towards more and more asynchronous work. You know that with Google Docs and with other devices they can work in a synchronous way, which has advantages and is not enough explored. Synchronous writing, collaborative writing. But a simple wiki can be enough to say, okay, I will add my comments to a document whenever I'm ready. I will input my content whenever I'm ready. So this seems like a concept I could explain to them, but what is not clear to me yet is exactly what kind of assignment will I give to the remote team, and what kind, here I have a more clear view, okay, we will open the chicken together and we will add the sauce and everything and we'll see what. Okay, but I finished here. So you can help me in my design, give me ideas. Normally I would think here that these assignments would be the theoretical models, and that they would provide, if we are cooking, if I continue to use the cooking metaphor, that would be cooking, but that the remote team would provide us with the ingredients. And the ingredients for good design is the theoretical models. I can use universal design for learning, I can use the 4CID model, I can use whatever Morrison, MRK, the ARCS model, all these instructional design models, I can use them at some point, depending on my case. And it's this choice that's interesting. But how will these students who are working with me know about the ingredients they need? And this is the interaction I would like to see happen. Is this a model you should imitate? No, it's my model. You should make your own. And say, depends on, do you have students that would like to work in a remote way? Would it be possible in your situation? Perhaps not. But you will probably have other challenges. And what I wanted to say today is the role of mobile devices, the role of mobile technologies, but more importantly, the role of mobile learning in a multimodal learning environment, which I mean multimodal, independent of time, location, device, content, multimodal. Teacher, the student can become a teacher, the student can become the author of the course. That's multimodal is the best word I could find. Instead of just blended learning, that I continue to teach the same way, but I use hot potatoes and now I'm doing blended learning. But that's why I'm against the term, because it's misused. So this is an example of how I think that a well-designed, I hope it's well-designed, we will see that next year, but I try to do my best. I'm not sure. This is engineering. It's my best possible hypothesis. And this is what I will try next year, and hopefully become happier than this year, Right, I did not succeed that much, even when my daughter was part of the group of students. But okay, we did have fun together. As I said yesterday, very important conference is coming up. One this university, but I normally make a list of conferences about computer-assisted language learning, and those are only the conferences for this year. And next year, I hope to be able to come back here with our own call research conference. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Floor is open. Any questions?
You can send them afterwards as well.
I have a comment. On your previous slide, I think the design is very interesting. But I think we need to, for example, if we want to use this model, adapt this model, I think we have to solve several problems. For example, like for the remote group, is there any, for example, like attendance requirement for those students? For example, in our university, we have some attendance requirement. They have to attend, like maybe for undergraduate students, like 80% of the courses. So they can stay at home most of the time. How do you check?
At that level, it's master students.
So it's all right.
I would trust them. It's not bachelor one. That's the difference. But I mean bachelor one, there you have to teach very systematically, control. They want feedback, they want clarity. Here you can control some things. Participation, if I make this wiki, I can exactly see who contributed what. If they work in my learning environment, I can exactly see who accessed which exercise. So I have a little bit of control to see who contributed what. But in terms of attendance, no. I evaluate the product, their contribution in the assignment, and what the value of their model in C is. Whether they work 2 hours or 10 hours is for me, it doesn't count. Because it's the only thing I want to evaluate at the end is, do they have the correct attitude based off enough insight, skills, and knowledge to be good designer?
What about the final assignment? Will the same assignment be given to each of the group or different?
The general evaluation needs to be the same for all. That's a rule by the university. And I say exam. This year, I had no exam. And the students, strangely enough, I thought they would be glad and took this as a negative point because I only graded the assignments and collaborative and individual tasks. And that did not work as much as I give a traditional exam. Not for all the points. I would give a traditional exam for 30% of the total points, something like that.
Thank you very much.
I have a comment on that. Well, actually, this looks really like what we are doing here. So I give a plenary lecture, and then we go back to some self-study. Then we have the seminar session. But now we are, all universities promoting blended learning. Well, you don't like the term, but multimodal learning. So we are trying to, for the plenary formal lecture, it becomes online. So they don't actually come to the lecture.
That's a possibility, sir.
So then how do you make sure this online learning occur and then the teacher and student can interact and make sure that the learning actually occur online effectively before they come to the classroom? Any way to...
The scenario will be very important, as in the study guide. In the study guide you will need to give them is needs to be clearly specified what is expected from them every week. Whether they are attending class or not, they need to provide, because if these guys for cooking need ingredients, these need to make sure that they have put the ingredients online and that they have the time to evaluate them to make sure that they are okay for being used in the other class. It will take a lot of more time for me, but hopefully a lot more fun, and I will learn a lot more about what they want or what they don't. It's some experimentation. At this stage, there's a group of another course of mine this now working on this design. So, and I promised him, if the result was good enough, that I certainly would try it out next year. Now I'm a little bit not totally convinced yet. And it's by adding elements, as you say, you should think about that and that and that. Perhaps it's a little bit a jump that is too far, because you can't expect teachers to every year redesign their courses to that extent. Mostly it's about small details that you would change. But this is a fundamental and perhaps too big a change, because I need to change the task, the content, evaluation form, and that might be too much because you need to test absolutely all the elements. As I said, it's a question of, okay, that will be perhaps not perfect in the beginning, but at least I will know for the year afterwards. Before I retire, I still have 5 years to go. So I would like to try that model so I can write about it and say, it's not about, I repeat, it's not about this model. It's about the reasoning behind it. The methodology I use to come up with this model that I would try for myself. Try to apply the same methodology, reasoning from your situation, and you might come up with something a lot better and a more beautiful, easy. Okay? Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Daisy.
Do you have any tips or strategies to encourage students to actually collaborate and interact online?
Good question. The theory tells us, pedagogical theory, that students should learn how to collaborate. And they do not prefer collaboration, because they see collaboration as dangerous, because in a group, there are always people who take advantage of other people's work. You have the hard workers, and they are afraid of this evaluation. Oh, I only get 8 points, and that one gets 6 and 9 points. How is that possible? And there is no such thing as a perfect peer evaluation. So it's a huge problem, and they see that as a problem. My students certainly have problems finding each other and making arrangements for working together. They need to do that asynchronously, they even don't know each other. So there's so many challenges, but at the same time, indeed, there's this kind of, yes, I still do collaborative learning, or some aspects of collaborative learning, and safe, well-designed tasks. But I know that they don't like it. I think it would say, it's only because in order to make the two paths possible, the remote path and face-to-face possible, my only solution was collaborative work. And that's the only reason why I would continue to do so. If I continue to teach my course the old way, I would simply go back, simplify my course to the utmost, simplify it. And that's what they want. Clarity, simplification. What do I need to do for the course? Tell me what to do, I will do it, and I expect so many points. And that's what they want. But do I need to design totally for what they want? I need to take into account what they want. But I always have this dilemma between what they should do, they should learn this, and it always conflicts with what they want. And a designer needs to reconcile these things. So collaborative, it's like, yes, I know they should learn how to do that, but I have no solutions for good collaborative tasks. If you have ideas, good. For tasks, no problem. But for the evaluation, for the ways they work together, as you mentioned, how can they work more effectively together? The strange thing is that you all know that you can provide platforms for exchange. What my colleagues try is in Blackboard or in whatever Moodle, the forum. And they even force their students in posting something in the forum. They get points for posting 2 questions on the forum. So that they can prove afterwards, look, our students use the forum. They won't use the forum. For every course there is a forum. They don't use it. What do they use? Behind your back. They're a Facebook group that they create especially for your course. If I could see that Facebook group, I would be... And these strategies, some things, and it's interesting to see that. What I would like to analyze what happens in spontaneous automatically. And this is interesting because the first time, because my daughter was there, I got for the first time a view in what happened behind the back of my colleagues, and to see how she interacted with her co-students and how they solve problems, how they work together. That was nice to see. But you can't be the director of all activities. The more they create these activities in a spontaneous, self-directed way, the more interesting it becomes, more productive, And that's beautiful to see. If I say, like my colleagues do, you should work together and discuss this, and then reflect, and discuss again, and reflect again, and do this and that, evaluate, and peer evaluate. No. Interesting is, define the product. What is the product I want at the end of my course? I want a clear product. This year it was a contest. I even gave an award to the best designer of the year. It's on Facebook, you can see the picture. I thought they would be crazy about this idea of competition, designer competition, and afterwards looking at it, they were not, no, they hated that. Even if the ranking was anonymous, was with their student numbers, so they couldn't see who was first. They only saw their own place in the ranking. Didn't work. Strange. I can only try out and experiment, but I'm in a situation where, as a teacher of instructional design, I can experiment with my students on things like that. I don't expect that you can experiment wildly with your course in whatever English or any other language, that you can say, well, let's do this time now. You should be careful and adopt very small changes at every stage. This is too crazy. I'm afraid.
I just have a comment. I mean, just responding to your question. What strategy you can use to make people, students, collaborate with each other? I think actually it's quite common for us to, in each course, I mean, to have at least 2 or 3 assignments. Usually one assignment will be group work. So what we can do, maybe we can give individual score to the students in the same group. So we try to maybe try to stress more, a little bit more on the individual contribution to the group work. I think that's another strategy.
But do you do that through peer evaluation?
Yes, because normally we ask them to work on something and then we make them present one by one. So based on individual presentation, you know, they have, we tell them, well, you can prepare your own part, but when all the parts are added together, it has to be coherent. So you still they need to communicate with each other. And we can just you know, score the individual presentation of the group presentation. Well, but I know that this is actually gives more stress and work on the teacher. So you have to be very tentative.
Yeah, they want to detail why the difference.
There will be a small, you know, narration. Won't be a big change.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, maybe it's a B or B plus or something like that.
Yeah, but it's always.
Well, I use the opposite of practice. I give them the same grade because it gives them motivation to help each other to achieve the best outcome. So
I tried both.
I
And
did the same.
this one because saves need effort.
I did the same, but I changed the group every week. I tested this year, and I thought that would be rule out the freeloaders, as they call them, and the hard workers would be. And that succeeded. I succeeded for the hard workers. All the hard workers recognized they were hard workers, but the freeloaders did not recognize it. All right, please send me any feedback on this model. Send me your model that I can give feedback. Try something out. But just keep experimenting. It will make teaching much more fun and certainly a little bit real research. Thank you.
thank you for coming.